The standard chronology of the ancient Near East contains a distinct gap between the 10th century BCE, the era traditionally associated with King Solomon, and the 6th and 5th centuries BCE, known as the Persian Era. Over the last few decades, the minimalist academic hypothesis has argued that early Israelite statecraft and Solomon's temple are late literary fictions. This framework suggests that the biblical accounts were composed by scribes during the Persian period, hundreds of years after the events they claim to describe. Within this view, Jerusalem in the 10th century BCE was an architectural void. There was no monumental temple and no centralized presence for a deity named Yahweh. But two separate lines of archaeological data have emerged that challenge this framework. The first is epigraphic, ancient inscriptions carved into stone pillars in modern Sudan, dating to 1400 BCE. The second is architectural, physical temple floor plans from the 10th and 9th centuries BCE discovered within Judah. Examining this raw physical data, from late Bronze Age hieroglyphs to Iron Age blueprints, forces a reassessment of the minimalist timeline. These artifacts provide an empirical anchor for textual traditions that were once dismissed as pure invention. This is the Temple of Amon-Ra at Soleb, located in Sudan. It was commissioned around 1400 BCE by the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III ordered the construction of hypostyle columns here to display a specific list of foreign peoples and lands allegedly subjugated by the Egyptian Empire. One specific stone carving, column 4N4, features a relief of a bound prisoner and a rectangular cartouche. For decades, an error persisted in the transcription of this cartouche. The final hieroglyph was originally read as the G43 bird, representing a W sound. Recent high-resolution photography has corrected this. The final sign is actually the G1 falcon, representing an aleph. The correct transcription reads, Ta Sasu Yahweh. Translated, the land of the nomads of Yahweh. Crucially, it lacks a geographic determinative, the symbol indicating a specific physical territory. In neighboring cartouches from this period, the names of Canaanite deities like Baal are attached to nomadic groups in the same way. The absence of a place marker identifies Yahweh as a personal name or a deity, not a location on a map. Ancient Egyptian records describe these shasu as tent-dwelling pastoralists, roaming the harsh southern Levant during the late Bronze Age. This corrected cartouche provides the earliest known epigraphic reference to the name. It places the deity Yahweh within the southern Levant over 500 years before the minimalist timeline allows for its presence in the region. Moving forward 5 centuries and into the Levant, we can see how the architecture of these settling nomads evolved as they formed a state. 5 kilometers west of Jerusalem lies the site of Motza. Minimalism claims that no state-sponsored temples existed in Judah during the 10th or 9th centuries BCE. That claim was tested in 2012 when archaeologists uncovered a massive temple at Motza dating to the 9th century BCE. The floor plan of the Motza temple reveals a long, narrow building constructed with thick stone walls. It is divided into 3 sections along a single straight axis: an entry space, a central room, and an inner chamber. At the front of the entry space, researchers discovered the stone bases of 2 prominent columns. This layout directly mirrors the specific tripartite plan of Solomon's temple preserved in 1 Kings. The text names these spaces the forecourt, or ulam, the outer sanctum, or hekal, and the inner holy of holies, the devir. These labels correspond directly to the rooms excavated at Motza. The biblical pillars Jachin and Boaz also find a physical parallel in the twin column bases positioned at the Motza entrance. This specific tripartite arrangement was a standard for public architecture across the Iron Age Levant, found at other sites like Ain Dara in Syria. The discovery at Motza proves that the architectural blueprint described in 1 Kings was a physical reality in 9th century Judah, built in the same region and era the text describes. The biblical description of the temple's superstructure uses technical architectural terms like mezuzot and slaot that have historically resisted clear translation. In 2011, excavators at Khirbet Qeiyafa discovered this 10th century BCE building model. Carved from limestone, it was a miniature representation of state-sponsored construction in Judah. 1 Kings describes the temple doors as having 4 and 5 mezuzot. Without a physical reference, the meaning of these recessed frames remained unclear for generations. The Qeiyafa model provides a physical reference for these terms. By looking closely at its carved doorway, we can see nested, interlocking doorframes. The text also describes slaot as groupings of 3. Linguistic context indicates these were actually roof beams. Protruding just below the roof of the model are identical rectangular elements, grouped in 3s. They function like classical triglyphs to support the roof structure. Combining the tripartite plan with these recessed doors and triglyph beams creates a complete 3-dimensional model of an Iron Age temple. This specific combination of architectural design was exclusive to the Iron Age Levant. By the Persian period, these construction methods had been discontinued and forgotten. A 6th century BCE scribe could not have accurately described these vanished architectural details. The precision of the biblical text indicates its sources are rooted in the Iron Age. When we synthesize these 2 lines of evidence, the material culture speaks for itself. We can now replace a theoretical timeline with a chronology anchored by physical data: 1400 BCE at Soleb, 1000 BCE at Caiapha, and 900 BCE at Motza. This material synthesis challenges the claim that the biblical temple was a late Persian era invention. The architectural layout in the text is not an abstract icon, it is a verifiable Iron Age reality. And the epigraphic data from Soleb identifies the deity associated with those temples in the southern Levant long before the minimalist timeline allows. As archaeology progresses, the physical material, the stones, floor plans, and hieroglyphs, demonstrates that these ancient traditions are not literary fictions, but are rooted in the deep historical realities of the ancient Near East.